So welcome everyone. My name is Megan Poss and I'm the Outgoing Director of Leading Change Canada. We are so pleased to have you join us for this first session in our series of pre-forum workshops in the lead up to Leading Change Capital. And for those of you whom this is your first touch point with our organization, today's session is going to offer a bit of background on Leading Change and our forum model. And even if you are familiar with Leading Change, you'll probably learn something new about our history and kind of inner workings of our organization. And then in the second half of this session, we'll dive into some networking best practices to support you in making the most of your delegate experience. Just want to mention, la présentation sera en anglais, mais n'hésitez pas à poser des questions ou à participer à la discussion dans la langue dans laquelle vous vous sentez plus à l'aise. So the presentation itself will be in English, but of course, please don't hesitate to ask questions or participate in the discussion in whichever language you feel most comfortable in. So while we're all uprooted and convening in digital spaces, we wanted to take a moment to ground ourselves in acknowledging the importance of land, especially in the context of gathering and connecting across different regions and time zones. So as an organization that is future focused and change oriented, it is important that we understand the history and current realities of the land that we call home, and also that supporting Indigenous agency and leadership is at the forefront of the work that we do. So if you know the land or treaty you're situated on, please feel free to type it in the chat box. Take a moment to give thanks to the original stewards of the land. For myself, I recently moved to the unceded territories of the Musqueam, Squamish, and Tsleil-Waututh Nations, or settler name of Vancouver. And if you don't know much about the land you're currently on, we'll share one of our favorite resources in the chat box for you to check out. And we also encourage you to attend or watch the recording of tomorrow's workshop, where one of our steering committee members, Sarah, will be leading a session all about land acknowledgements. So before we get started, just a couple housekeeping items here. I know we're all very familiar with Zoom and virtual meetings probably by now, but just a reminder, especially because this is a Zoom meeting and not a webinar, this means that you as an attendee have a bit more agency with the control settings. So please, if you can, keep yourself on mute for the time being, just so that we can eliminate any background noise and feedback. We do, however, encourage you to use that chat function, so ask questions, interact with other attendees, and of course, any tech questions that you may have, you can direct those to Tiernan, our communications coordinator. They'll be happy to help you out. Hey, Tiernan. And there will also be some interactivity towards the end of this session. So just kind of giving folks a heads up in case you would like to turn your camera off for that. You're also welcome to keep it off or just use the chat function. We're really flexible and accommodating with however folks are feeling today in terms of the way that they want to participate. And finally, this session is being recorded, and we'll be posting it to share with the rest of the delegation on our private event page. So with that, let's jump into an overview of what Leading Change and this upcoming forum is all about. So as mentioned, my name is Megan, and I'm the Outgoing Executive Director of Leading Change. I've been involved with the organization since 2014 and have been at the helm as ED for the last 2.5 years. A bit hard to see kind of from the shoulders up, but I'm also 9 months pregnant. And so this is my last week in the virtual office. Timing, of course, isn't optimal with our major annual summit. But I'm so glad things have worked out so I can squeeze in meeting and interacting with some of this year's delegates. Truly what makes this job and the work that we do so special is getting to know and support some of the most hardworking, thoughtful, incredible young people across the country. I really feel, blessed and privileged to have been able to work with this organization over the last few years. And at the end of this week, I'll officially be passing the baton over to our incoming executive director, who's with us today. So Bo, if you'd like to say a few words about yourself.
Yeah, thanks, Megan. So first, excuse me. There we go. I'd like to give a huge thanks to Megan for leaving some absolutely gigantic shoes for me to fill. So thank you for that. No, but in all seriousness, she's been a fantastic leader for us at Leading Change, and I just hope that I can build on her work over the years and continue to push Leading Change forward. So yeah, my name is Bo Aganaba, and I have the pleasure of taking over the executive director role later this week. Um, I'm passionate about the integration of the natural world and the built environment, and using some of the ecological insights to inform the systems that govern the way that we live, the way that we work, and the way that we play. And I'm thrilled to be able to interact with so many brilliant young people on a regular basis through Leading Change, and I find myself constantly being inspired by what our generation is accomplishing. So let's move ahead to a little bit of Leading Change 101. So to begin with, Leading Change's mission is to activate young professional leadership to accelerate positive change. There's a small window for the tremendous amount of change that's required to stay within scientifically determined planetary boundaries and meet globally recognized human well-being targets. So we're on a mission to build a coordinated, multi-sector, national network of young Canadian leaders that can accelerate the transition to a cleaner and a fairer economy. And our long-term vision is to achieve a sustainable, prosperous, and socially just future within a generation. So this vision that we have is shared with other cross-national sustainability organizations, which includes the Delphi Group, Globe Series, Excel Partnership, and also CBSR. We each have our own respective missions and leadership, but we're united by this common vision. What makes us a bit unique is that we operate in a constellation model, and that means that we share common back-end services such as IT, marketing, operations, and we work closely with each other on different initiatives, including the biannual Leading Change and Globe Capital Summits. So who do we serve? Well, our aim is to build a resilient national network across different sectors, industries, lived experiences, regions, disciplines, and generations. Our target constituency is young leaders and professionals between the ages of 19 and 35. We intentionally bring together a diverse group through our forums, which you'll see as you get to meet and interact with your fellow delegates. We know that one of Canada's defining traits is diversity, so we want to honor that. Despite the differences that you might see, the people who gravitate to our programs tend to share common traits. And that includes a tendency to be motivated, to be part of the transition to a clean and socially just economy, to have a clear sense of personal identity, and people who are open-minded and excited to learn from different perspectives.
So I thought it would also be helpful to share just how the initiative, now known as Leading Change, came to be. A lot of folks that have some questions about what is, how does Leading Change fit into this constellation model? How long have you folks been around? So Leading Change actually began way back in 2001, which I realize is probably when some of our youngest folks in our delegation were born. And it began back when Mike Gerbis, who's the current CEO of the Globe Series and the Delphi Group, he's also the chair of our board of directors, and a colleague of his, recognized that youth perspectives were often left out of a lot of conferences and summits, spaces where future-looking areas were being discussed, and ironically, the people who would be responsible and kind of implicated by those decisions weren't in the room. So in 2003, they ran a pilot youth event held in conjunction with the Environment and Energy Conference in Toronto. And then in 2004, the first Emerging Environmental Leaders Forum was held in conjunction with the Globe Forum in Vancouver, BC. So really kind of focused on bringing together young environmental leaders, and it was ran as a biennial one-day event. from 2012 to 2018, the ELF Forum was renamed to the Leading Change Forum. So it shifted from being a conference largely focused on the environment to one that also incorporated social and economic considerations. The forum continued to be a biennial Vancouver-based event where we'd bring on a seasonal event manager and a volunteer organizing committee would largely be behind the scenes pulling off that event. In fall 2018, Leading Change got a snazzy new logo and also became formally integrated into the constellation of organizations that Bo mentioned. February 2019, we held our first Leading Change Capital, piloted in conjunction with Globe Capital in Toronto, Ontario. Another big milestone for us was in July of that year, we officially became a federally incorporated not-for-profit and a distinct entity, not just a project that different groups and volunteers were holding. In February of last year, we held the first Leading Change Forum at the same venue as Globe, the beautiful Vancouver Convention Center. And in attendance were delegates from all Canadian provinces and territories. And then in March of last year, we had to, we were extremely lucky that we were able to hold our last in-person forum before COVID-19 travel restrictions and gatherings hit. And since March, we've really been expanding our programs to virtual offerings. And certainly as an organization focused on sustainability and connecting a national network, we've actually seen some really big benefits with pivoting to more virtual program offerings. And we'd be remiss not to mention the incredible people power behind the work that we do. So our staff of currently Bo, myself, and Tiernan are supported by two governance bodies. So we have our board of directors, who are the official legal body providing fiduciary and strategic oversight for the organization. Actually have a few new board directors that we'll be announcing very, very soon. And our steering committee, which is comprised of 10 dedicated young leaders from across the country. The steering committee offers guidance and critical feedback on our programming, and is really the backbone behind our annual forums such as this. So if you do have a chance, please make sure to thank these individuals for all the hard work and time they put in. So over to you.
Yeah, so there's a lot of NGOs, projects, events, fellowships working to address some of these same critical sustainability issues that we all care about. It's an ecosystem that's teeming with activity, which, that's really encouraging. We want to see people working in the space, but it's also quite crowded. So rather than stepping on toes, we want to elevate the amazing work that other groups are doing and provide a platform to individuals whose work might be going under the radar. So the way that we view our contribution to this bigger ecosystem is by serving as the connective tissue between youth organizations, initiatives, and individuals, designing and facilitating brave spaces that allow participants to show up as their full and authentic selves, fostering peer and mentor relationships to share best practices and leapfrog past failures, and focusing on transferable soft skills and practical knowledge that supports implementation. So what are some of our programs? This approach translates to the programs that we currently offer. Of course, we have our annual forums, which create spaces for young people to reach across the aisle and bridge new connections. In even years that we've come together in Vancouver, BC, to hear about the state of the planet and cutting-edge solutions. In odd years, we converge in Toronto, Ontario, virtually this year, of course, to mobilize the capital and action plans to implement those solutions. We also have Leading Change Hubs, which is a fairly new program to encourage and help participants to build trusting relationships while connecting over shared interests. And we also have our leadership coffee chats, which help young people broaden their network and receive career and industry insights from leaders in the field.
Thanks, Bo. And yeah, the hubs and the copy chats, which we've been running this winter, Bo has largely been spearheading those activities, and they've been well received by both participants and all of the amazing industry mentors that we've brought in. So now that you know a bit more about the organization, you likely want to know what's in store for your delegate experience this year. So this is a high-level overview of all the activities surrounding Leading Change Capital. So it's not just a one-day event. As Bo mentioned, we do run these hubs, and we've been running 3 since February. They're essentially small working groups that have been meeting and have been focusing on the areas of sustainable and climate finance, circular economy and circular finance, and governance and social equity. And they'll be sharing what they've been working on at the forum. We've got a session in there if you're curious to know what they've been up to, or if, of course, if you're part of one of these hubs, you'll want to attend that session. This week and next, we're running a series of pre-forum workshops to help you prepare for Leading Change Capital. Then on Monday, April 12th, it's our full day Leading Change Capital virtual summit, followed the rest of the week by Globe Capital, which all youth delegates will have access to. And then finally, the Tuesday following Capital Week, we'll be running a speed mentoring session. So diving a little bit more into the details on each of these. So as our Leading Change Capital programming is going virtual, we thought it was a great opportunity to widen the scope of our agenda to include these optional pre-forum sessions, really focused on skill development and peer learning opportunities. So we do encourage you to either attend these events live or watch the recordings prior to the Leading Change Capital Forum. As part of our vision of attaining a sustainable, prosperous, and socially just future within a generation, we are committed to providing our delegates with the context and necessary skills to bring a lens of equity and justice into their current and future work. So that's why we're offering 3 forum sessions, which are really focused on these skills. So one tomorrow on kind of an introduction to land acknowledgements. We have an anti-oppression training, as well as another one on creating brave spaces. And we encourage all of our delegates to attend these sessions, either live or through the recordings. There's going to be some key questions and activities from these sessions that are brought to the introductory program of the forum. So definitely make sure to check those out. And then for some of our delegates, they're seasoned pros when it comes to conferences or some of the topics that are going to be covered during Capital Week. For others, this might be your first big professional event, or you're a little less familiar with investment and infrastructure topics. So to prepare all of our delegates for the learnings to come at both Leading Change Capital and Globe Capital, we are offering a few pre-forum sessions focused on explaining, in plain language and from, folks that are your peers, some of the key thematic areas of Leading Change and Globe. And so there's going to be one on mobilizing finance 101 and another session on sustainable infrastructure. And as mentioned, these are going to be sort of introductory in nature. We really encourage any new delegates or those folks with less familiarity on these topics to attend those sessions. And they're completely optional and really designed to prepare delegates to feel comfortable and confident in engaging with the session themes. Bo, over to you.
Yeah, so Leading Change Capital itself is going to take place on the Monday, April 12th, and it'll contain 6 hours of programming, plus an additional networking reception at the end. The sessions are designed to help delegates learn, connect with each other, and also to take action. We'll be revealing the full agenda along with all the listed speakers and the session descriptions later this week on the Leading Change Capital Visible website. If you've signed up for Globe Capital, you'll automatically be granted access to the Leading Change Capital website as well. So be sure to check your emails this week. Speaking of Globe Capital, as I said, all Leading Change delegates will have access to additional programming later that week. This is going to be an awesome opportunity for you to hear from some of the leading voices in business, finance, government, and community leadership, as well as give you an opportunity to engage in conversations with decision makers. So we do highly encourage Leading Change delegates to participate in the Globe Advanced workshops. These are hands-on, collaborative, and action-oriented sessions moderated by subject matter experts. You'll hear more at the end of the day of Leading Change Capital from Globe's Managing Director, Elizabeth Shirt. But in the meantime, we encourage you to visit the Globe Capital website to get a feel for the program. And then finally, the Tuesday following Capital Week, we'll be hosting our flagship speed mentoring session. This session is designed to help you build your own mentoring constellation. It's an opportunity to form a diverse circle of supportive relationships that lead to more productive, satisfying, and impactful career paths. So we absolutely highly recommend you participate in this program.
So I guess kind of on that note, before we move to a short training to help you prepare for the mentoring session and other networking activities, I just wanted to open the floor in case anyone does have any questions about kind of the content we've covered so far. And Bo, I've got like a million windows up, so if either you or Tiernan maybe can read out any questions in the chat, we can both field them. That'd be great.
So our first question from April, how will people gain access to the workshop videos if they're unable to join live?
Yeah, so I believe this week is when we're going to be unveiling our event website. So it is a Bizzabo website, very similar, actually nearly identical to the one that is being used for Globe Capital, and all of the recordings will be stored there. So we'll, likely alert you kind of midweek this week about how to gain access to that site and also where you can go to find all of those recordings.
That's the only question so far.
Wow, Bo, we were so comprehensive with our,
Here we got one more. Is there a way to confirm our registration for the mentorship session?
Yeah, so we actually, I don't believe, and yeah, good that we've got Nauman on the call today, but I don't believe we've sent out details for that session yet. So we will have again a registration process for you to sign up for that session, and you should then receive kind of an automatic calendar invite that you can save to your calendar. But yeah, don't worry, you haven't missed anything. It just hasn't been sent out yet.
Here's another question. How do we join the Leading Change hubs in the future? I can take that one. So make sure that you are signed up to our mailing list, you're following us on socials and things like that, so that when we do run up or when we do plan the next hub program, you'll be aware of it. And then there'll be a form for you to be able to register through our website, and then you can identify which of the hubs, depending on which programs we end up running, that you'd like to participate in. So yeah, make sure you stay connected with us.
Great, and of course, if anyone does have questions or thinks of something after the fact, yeah, please, few different ways you can reach out to us, both on the private LinkedIn group. If you're not already on there, we'll have a reminder at the end of this webinar on signing up for that and joining, or our emails are on the website, so feel free to reach out to either Bo or myself or our admin account with any of your questions.
One more question from Paige, just quickly. How can we confirm if we are registered for the main Globe Capital Conference?
That is a good question. I believe once you're registered, there should be some pretty frequent or periodic emails coming from coming from Globe Capital. But I am happy to loop back with the Globe team to understand exactly kind of what you should be seeing in your inbox for that confirmation.
Yeah. Paige, just send one of us an email and we can get that confirmed for you.
Great. Well, if there's no more, no more questions for this section, we'll move on to our virtual networking. And so leading this presentation is Nauman Anwar, who is Leading Change's Director of Alumni Engagement, kind of longtime Leading Change delegate and attendee and supporter. So Nauman, I'll pass the floor over to you.
Thank you, Megan. Thank you everyone for joining us. I'm based out of Mohkinstis, a settler name of Calgary. And so glad to see so many of you signing up for this session. So over the next 30 odd minutes or so, I'm hoping you've got your elevator pitches ready, because I'm going to speak for about 5-10 minutes. And then after that, we'll switch towards allowing you to practice your elevator pitches and putting you into groups to have a bit of a conversation. So before that, I'll cover off a few things. So hi, everyone. My name is Nauman. In terms of my introduction, I use my own elevator pitch. So I get things done by bringing together diverse views and smart people. Crown jewel of my career was when I delivered the program for 45% emission reduction from the oil and gas sector in Alberta, which will contribute 10% of Canada's Paris commitments. Currently, I'm leading financial transformation for a multinational energy company, and I hope to make a career in enabling businesses and governments take tangible actions to reach their net zero targets. Unfortunately, my co-presenter, Richa, was pulled into a minister briefing, so she's not able to make it, but I do have content from her that I will cover off as we go through. So Richa serves as a ministerial advisor for the Minister of State for Infrastructure in BC. So next slide, please. So why network? What's the purpose? What's the value? What's the purpose of networking? So there's one quote that if you remember one thing from this next half an hour, it's this one thing. In today's economy, it's not about who you know, but who knows you. And I'll talk about that in detail as we go through. But remember this, it's not about who you know, but who knows you. It's a dog-eat-dog world out there, right? So how do you set yourself apart? The best way to do that is to build a professional group of peers and leaders. And then what do you do with that group? You leverage this group essentially to look for business opportunities, to look for mentorship opportunities, jobs, volunteer opportunities, whether through charities or non-for-profits. Discuss, common topics of interest. So there's different ways that you can leverage that. So I'll give a couple of examples on this slide before moving on. So when it comes to business opportunities, I'll mention something here. So I was at COP23 in Germany, and I met an investor in a different setting. Met him, interacted with him, got his information, and then I met the CEO of Heart Hyperloop in a different setting. So it's a Hyperloop company based out of Netherlands. Afterwards, after reflecting on the whole day, I realized that the person from Heart Hyperloop was actually looking for opportunities for investment, was looking for investors, whereas the investor was looking for investment opportunities. So I put them together. There's no benefit that I garnered out of it, but they both interacted. They both the investor visited Heart's facilities as well, and I'm still in touch with Heart CEO Tim, and we do have these conversations every now and then in terms of what opportunities he's looking for. But again, that was just one case in which I connected both of them based on the networking that I had done. And then when it comes to volunteer opportunities, think about that as to whether it's advocacy, whether it's charities, whether it's non-for-profit boards. That could in itself be an opportunity for you to network and benefit from such a network. Now, professional topics of common interest, other than the situation that we are in, one of the topics that Richa wanted me to mention is that, right now we are going through some very odd times. And it is perfectly okay for us to reach out to our own network, and in this case, peers, leaders, and others as well, to find that emotional support, to talk about that, this is how I'm coping with COVID-19. This is what I'm struggling with. How are you dealing with that right now? So, you can leverage this group of your network in that way as well. So, next slide, please. So remember, networking, you have to remember that it's more about giving than it's about taking. It takes time and effort to nurture. It's not something that happens overnight. You might not see any benefit at all from the relationship. Example that I gave about the CEO of Heart and the investor, I didn't get any benefit out of that, other that I've made a good connection in a very innovative field that I can potentially talk to about new opportunities and whatnot. The current role that I'm in right now, I do have to mention that I helped somebody about 10 years ago with his application for Canadian immigration. And then 4 or 5 years later, he wanted his parents' immigration. So he talked to me about that, and I helped him through that process. Then about 3 or 4 months ago, when I started looking for opportunities, I told him about that as to, hey, in one of the conversations we were having, that, hey, I'm thinking of switching right now. If anything comes up, let me know. And he said, okay. And then 2 weeks later, he reached out and said, hey, send me your resume. And then that led to the interview process that eventually led to this opportunity that I'm currently in. So he knew me and he knew about the opportunities. So he connected me with those opportunities. So that's where, if you remember on the first slide, we talked about that networking is about who knows you. That's what I mean by that. So next slide, please. So elevator pitch. I'm going to repeat my elevator pitch in a second here, but the best way to think about the elevator pitch is not just a mention of, yes, I'm a project manager. So what? You have to somehow or the other make yourself distinctive enough, memorable enough for the other person to remember you, and then later on potentially connect with as well. So the best way to do that is talk a little bit about who you are and what your interests are. So in a way, think about it as to things that you have done and things that you want to do. So that in itself, connect that, and then that's your 30-second elevator pitch. So I'm going to repeat mine again, and you'll see that pattern in there, that I get stuff done by bringing together diverse views and smart people. Crown jewel of my career was delivering the program for 45% emission reduction from the oil and gas sector in Alberta, which will contribute to 10% of Canada's Paris commitments. Currently, I'm leading financial transformation for a multinational energy company, and I hope to make a career on enabling businesses and governments take tangible actions towards their net zero targets. Talked about what I have done, what I'm about, as well as where I want to go next. So another thing that you can often add into your elevator pitch is things that might be of interest to you. Example, long distance running. That's an interest of mine. I've mentioned that, and a lot of times folks have connected with me. I remember in one interview process, as soon as I mentioned that, the other person's like, oh, so why do you do long distance running? And I was like, oh yeah, that's my release mechanism, that after a hard day, for me, in order to feel relaxed, I go for a run. And she and I connected right away on that. Like, bam, that was an instant connection. And we talked about that for another few minutes before then switching back to the interview process. So think about that's an opportunity for you to not just say, hey, I'm a student or I'm a project manager. No, make yourself exciting enough so that you're memorable enough in their memory. Another thing in terms of pre-network preparation is make sure your LinkedIn is ready. You are one search away for pretty much everyone, and especially if this is if everything is online these days, then it's a matter of them switching the screen and just searching you. Similarly, whoever you're networking with, I would highly recommend go onto their LinkedIn profile. The reason they have that information up there is because they want to be known professionally through their LinkedIn page. So it's okay to go and look for those details and see if there's any common interests. Another thing, test technology. Do make sure that you do test your technology, especially your camera and the headset. Richa and I were doing a practice round on Saturday, and the first thing that did not work for us was technology. And then this morning, when Megan and the rest of us were trying to get this session set up, again, the challenges we ran into were technology related. So do try and make sure that you spend time in terms of testing technology ahead of time. Next slide, please. Another thing about preparing ahead of time, try to ensure that your surroundings are quiet. If you cannot talk and put yourself off of mute because of the background noise, then that's not helpful. So try and see if you can ensure that your surroundings are quiet. Might not be possible in every case, but try and do that. Another thing is, as you can see on the with the image as well, dress code, business casual. At least the camera view, make sure that you're dressed in a business casual environment. You're not in the business situation right now. You're not expected to be wearing a tie and a suit for these networking sessions, especially during the COVID situation that we are currently in. That's not expected at all. But business casual gives an impression that yes, you are a professional, and you've got a polished outlook for yourself, and that gives a different kind of a feel to the person that's interacting with you. And then another thing, you don't always have to think about a video call. One of the things that Richa wanted me to mention is that there is quite a bit of Zoom fatigue that everyone is going through. So if you have already connected with somebody maybe once before or not, offer them that opportunity that, hey, I want to connect. It's okay if you want it to be over a phone call. It's perfectly okay to say that. And you would find that at times people will be like, yeah, it's thank you for that option. Let's connect over a phone call instead of a Zoom meeting. Everyone is suffering from that. After 8 hours of meeting on Zoom or Teams in a day, I at times prefer doing that, of connecting over phone versus another Zoom meeting and still sitting in front of the computer. So it's perfectly okay to ask for a phone call potentially, as opposed to another Zoom call. Next slide, please. So, but if you have a Zoom call on, make sure your cameras are on. If you're meeting for them on coffee, you do not wear your invisibility cloak. Harry Potter reference here. So yeah, if you are meeting on a Zoom call, try and keep your camera on. Never ask for a job, at least directly. That puts the other person in a very awkward position of having to say yes or no to you on the spot. The idea is to put your interest out there and then have them assess whether you are an ideal person for a role that they might be looking for. So, and the best way to do that is by asking for advice as to, hey, I've done that many times myself, where if I'm interested in a company and positions within that company, I reach out to somebody from within that company and ask, hey, I saw that posting for a job, and I have a few questions and I want to seek your advice on that. And by doing that, I'm showing my interest already without actually having to put them into a position of either having to say yes or no, or even asking for a referral. I'm not doing any of that. Now, through those conversations, you'll find 7 out of 10 times they will say yes. They will say, yep, you're a great person. I've known you in the past. Or, even if it's the first interaction, if it's professional enough, they'll be like, yeah, sure, I can connect you for that opportunity. Similarly, when you go into the mentorship conversations as well, you have to think about that as well, that in a way, you're asking somebody to commit time towards this. So instead of saying, please, pick me as your mentee, please pick me as your mentee, it's about, again, putting yourself out there as to, yes, this is what my interests are, and I think I can learn from you about this and this. And leave that decision up to them as to whether they take you up as a mentee or not. If you are connecting, do try and make sure that you're showing genuine interest in their lives and work. That is quite key. The network that is just very transactional doesn't go a long way. So you do have to think about that can you make that interest that you're showing a genuine interest, remembering details about their lives, remembering details about what their interests are, and you'd be amazed as to how you might be able to build a connection. Next slide. One of the most common places where folks miss out on establishing a connection is follow-ups. You meet with somebody once, you get that great opportunity, but then after that, you completely let that connection die. Don't do that. The easiest way to do that is make sure you send a thank you note and mention something from your conversation to them. If you meet somebody in a group, which you will likely do in the coming days, quote something interesting that you heard from them and ask for a follow-up one-on-one conversation in that thank you. That, hey, yeah, I heard you in that session. You mentioned that. That's an area of interest of mine as well. Do you have can you spare 15, 20 minutes to have a conversation with me later on? So remember, it's you have to build that connection. Another piece is common areas of interest. Use that to build connections. If you hear something interesting, try and see if that you can connect with them on that. An example that I experienced once was somebody mentioned about a sushi restaurant as to, yeah, they were struggling to find a good sushi restaurant in Calgary. I was like, oh, okay. And then later on, I found out about a good sushi restaurant. And I think 2 or 3 weeks later, I reached out to them and said, hey, you mentioned that. Here you go. There's a couple of recommendations from my friends about good sushi restaurants. And they really appreciated that. And they reached out and said, thank you for that. It never hurts to just send them even just a season's greeting or even just to say happy holidays. So remember, it's about that connection that you have an opportunity to build. It totally depends on you, if you can build on that or not. And you would find that if you make that effort, again, 7 out of 10 times in my career, that's happened, that I've gotten a positive response back, and it's led to something that has nurtured further into some sort of a professional relationship. Next slide, please. So any questions before we move on to the practice rounds? See, there's a couple of chats.
And Nauman, I think we were also going to open up the floor if there's anyone else on the line that has, some additional tips or tricks they've found.
Yes,
especially
please.
In the context of virtual networking.
How have you guys networked? Like any success stories, anything that you found was really helpful? Feel free to share that. This is the opportunity.
I'll go. A couple weeks ago, I've been on the search for an internship, and I decided I would DM someone on Twitter that I had kind of known through like some social circles, and I was like, hey, does your organization hire interns? And at first it kind of looked like it wouldn't work out, but last week I found out my internship with them got confirmed.
Congrats.
That was like pretty cool to like just kind of reach out to someone that you kind of know but don't know, and then seeing how they're willing to help you get through stuff. So yeah, that's my story for networking during a pandemic.
That is a great story. Thank you for sharing. Anyone else? Any other tips, tricks that have worked for you?
Well, I'll do a shameless plug for Leading Changes coffee chat series, which Bo has been leading and can maybe share a little bit more insight. But we've really found that this model of small groups interacting with industry leaders who have already indicated to us that they like mentoring and speaking with young people about kind of their career and industry is it's a great and efficient model, and certainly the folks who do actually kind of follow through and send a follow-up email to the mentor who's provided their email address or offered to connect on LinkedIn, or it just know that like not everyone in even a group setting of really ambitious young folks will take that next step to continue on and make the connection. So it's a small effort on your part, and can really help you stand out. I don't know, Bo, you want to mention anything about kind of what you've observed in those group settings?
Yeah, absolutely. That's probably been what I've appreciated most about this is most of the mentors that we've been able to bring in have been really receptive to hearing from our participants, and of course a lot of our participants are already doing pretty amazing things as well. So they're encouraged by that. They also get a lot out of the conversation too. Like they want to hear what our participants are doing and what they're interested in. And so, yeah, I think we've been really fortunate to provide that opportunity in that space for people across the Leading Change Network. So, yeah, if any of you are in a future coffee chat and you resonate with the guest that we have, like really don't be afraid to send them a message. And as Nauman mentioned, bring up something that they might have said during the conversation that spoke to you directly. Like that also goes a long way to show that you were paying attention and that you appreciated the conversation.
Oh, thank you for sharing that, Bo. And what Paige's example is a very great example of never be shy. What's the worst that will happen? They'll say no. As long as you're respectful, you tried. The worst that can happen is you won't make that connection. The best thing that could happen is it could develop into a professional relationship that could yield benefits for both sides. So I think with this, we are ready to network. So, and just in the interest of time, Bo, I think let's just do one round and not two. And then we can do a bit of a time, leave a bit of time for debrief and then the closeout. So everybody, you'll be put into a group of 3 to 4 individuals each. The idea is to use that time wisely. Try and not take up the entire space. Be mindful of everybody else being there. Do not try to keep your elevator pitch within 30 seconds. I shared mine a couple of times. Try and see if you can replicate something like that. Also, a topic that we wanted to give you guys to discuss within those groups so that there's not awkward silence is what you're hoping to achieve being part of leading change. And then look for opportunities to connect within that as well as to what others respond to that. Look for those opportunities to potentially have a later on connection as well. So, and then once we come back, we'll do a bit of a debrief at the end. So with that, Bo, if you can put us all into breakout rooms. Perfect. So let's do a bit of a quick debrief before I hand it over to Megan and Bo. If I could have before, instead of me picking anyone, why don't, if anyone wants to volunteer and share, what did you find easy? What did you find difficult in that interaction? Please share, otherwise I'll pick on someone.
I'll just say it was really easy because everyone in my group was really chatty. But that made it difficult for us to get through everything. But I think that's like a good sign that we all had a connection and continue our conversations. So I think that's a good thing.
Perfect. April, I see you put yourself off mute.
I would agree with Paige where it was quite easy to just introduce ourselves and connect, but it was definitely difficult that we had such a limited time and we wanted to just keep the conversation going.
That's a good sign. Anyone else? Anwar, I'm going to pick on you.
Sure, I'll be honest. The thing I mentioned this in my group. I went to the dentist this morning, so my whole right side of my face is numb. So I find it difficult to talk right now.
I hope you feel better. You don't have to. That's okay. Perfect. Anybody found anything difficult other than what's already been discussed? Richa.
I don't think there was anything difficult. I had an amazing group of people, and it was very interesting because all of us had, something in common, and we, in the past or like in our interests, had something that we could share with each other or connect. I'm already connecting with one of my group members on LinkedIn shortly, so I'm very excited about that.
That's perfect. That's perfect. Thank you so much, everyone, for participating in that quick exercise. And again, remember, your elevator pitch needs to be a bit punchy. Try and not take a lot of space in that. And once that's done, then try and pick up on other people's comments and what they mention. See what common interests can you find with them and connect either right away or later on with. So I know time's always going to be a constraint. So look for those opportunities and then connect later on. And I'm sure that 7 out of 10 times, that's been my experience over the last 10 years, that 7 out of 10 times I've gotten a positive response. And don't forget the follow-ups. Perfect. With that, I'm going to hand it back. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Nauman, and also thank you to Richa for helping generate some of that content. So before we go, we just have a few reminders and actions to leave you with. So first, a reminder that tomorrow we'll have a session on land acknowledgements. If you're available, we definitely encourage you to sign up and attend it live. Otherwise, the recording will be made available. I know it's certainly going to be helpful for me, as sometimes it can be difficult to know what's exactly the right way to go about approaching the sensitive topic. If you haven't already done so, make sure to join the private LinkedIn group for the 2021 Capital Delegation. This is a great way to start meeting your peers, your other delegates, and to stay up to date and up to speed with important event reminders. Also, to help you be matched to your ideal mentors and possible career opportunities, make sure to fill out that pre-form survey by April 2nd. And then finally, if you're on any social channels, we encourage you to follow and interact with us at Lead Change. And also, don't be afraid to use that hashtag LC2021 to share your experiences. So that's going to be it for now. Thank you so much for joining us in this first session. And I hope you enjoy the rest of your day. And yeah, we'll see you over the next 2 weeks and at Leading Change Capital.